Today's video is sponsored to you by EA. We're going to be talking roster management, the best way to build your lineup, the best way to activate scheme chemistries, team chemistries, abilities. Any question that you might have on building your ultimate team, we're going to answer it in this video. Let's get it. What's going on, everybody out there? This is Popular Stranger, and we are back at you again today with another College Football 25 Ultimate Team video. In today's video, we're going to break down and go over everything that you need to know about building your Ultimate Team lineup in College Football 25, from adding abilities, chemistries, going over the specialist screen. This is really going to help a lot of you newcomers out there on getting your lineup right so you can win more games on the field. Let's go ahead and jump on into it. So we're going to start with the very basics, and if you're a more experienced Ultimate Team player, a lot of this stuff is going to be repetitive for you, but there are a few new things when it comes to College Ultimate Team compared to the prior days of Madden Ultimate Team. So we're going to start with the lineup creation, and if you guys were unaware, you can build multiple lineups and save them, and this is a nice little trick to do for those of you that maybe are running a theme team but then have a best players available team. There's, different options, however you want to go about it. And if we look at my team right here, right, it's a little bit incomplete. On the offense, there's one player. When we flip over to the defense, the majority of this is sorted out, and this is because I'm starting to build my lineup from scratch. Now, there's a shortcut to doing all that. If you want to save yourself some time, there is a generate best lineup option. I like to build my team from scratch because there's just certain players that I want in certain positions based on my scheme, my style of play, and the playbooks that I run. So if you use your D-pad and go all the way over to lineup tools in the upper right, you're going to see that there's an option to change active lineup. So if you happen to have two different lineups or multiple lineups, you can switch between them with this option. So the Goons lineup is our active lineup. It says it on the screen. And then I have my lineup 1, which is my initial created lineup that I'm kind of moving away from. And I built a new lineup to try to put players where I want them to be, because we've recently added new items to the team, and the generate best lineup option sometimes doesn't work for me. It might work for you, but I do want to go back to the change active lineup, because when we're on the screen, if you look towards the bottom left, you can select X or A on Xbox to activate that lineup. You can delete a current lineup, so if I wanted to get rid of lineup number 1, we could do that. You can also create a brand new lineup by hitting triangle on PlayStation or Y on Xbox, and there's a couple different options you have here. You can set an entirely empty lineup where no position is filled by any item. You can copy the active lineup, so I could take that lineup 1 and create a carbon copy of it, rename it to lineup 2 or whatever I want to name it, and then maybe make some adjustments from there. So for example purposes, we're going to create a new empty lineup, and it's going to give us an option to rename it. For purposes in this video, we're going to name this lineup Demo. This is just a way to understand or locate, the difference between certain lineups if you happen to have multiple of them. Now, the quickest option to get your roster full is generate best lineup. You can choose best team overall. You can choose by chemistry, which we're going to talk about in more detail in a moment. We got team chemistries, we got scheme chemistries, but for now, we're just going to go with the best team overall. And boom, we now have our lineup. You can look in the upper right. We can see that we're an 81 overall with this generated best lineup, and this is going to be the fastest possible way to assemble your squad and get them on the field. The alternative is building your lineup from scratch, and we showed you that semi-empty lineup, the one that we titled Goons. So if we go over to change active lineup, we can now go back and select that one. The other two lineups will still be saved there, and no changes will be made to those, only the one that's going to be on your screen. So if we want to plug and play certain players, we'll go over to halfback, we'll hit X or A on Xbox to select a player, and then we're going to choose which player we want to have at halfback. You can always look to your right and left to see attributes on the players that you're either replacing with a new player or adding from scratch like we are. So we want to make Jordan Waters I should say, our starting running back. We can see on the right that he has 80 speed. We're looking for speed at the running back position. And then we have Donovan Edwards, who has 82 speed. So they're both the same overall, but we want the faster guy, right? Another option that you have is pushing your right analog stick to the right. That will flip all of the items that you have on your screen here, and you can see some of the attributes on the back of it. They usually highlight the important ones, and if they happen to have abilities, which we're also going to talk about in a moment, those would appear towards the right side of the back of the item. So we're going to go ahead and select Donovan Edwards. Now, when it comes to a position like running back, there's a depth chart here where we can put a second and a third running back, and other positions have more detail or are less options there. So if we want to make Jordan Waters our backup running back, well, we can go ahead and throw him in there. And now we have 2 running backs. If we wanted to add a third, we can. With the brand new wear and tear system, it's probably not a bad idea, specifically for your skill position players, to have a couple good backups in case your primary guys get hurt or start to lose attributes based on the wear and tear system. Now you got some good backup options to substitute in. So now we have the core of our team built between the offense, the defense, and special teams. The lineup is mostly full, but we also have a specialist screen, which is really, really important, and it's a way to get multiple players on the field amongst different formations, and also a way to essentially set up the way either your defense or your offense operates. There's a third down running back spot and a power back spot on the specialist screen, and you can see I'm splitting these 2 positions by 2 different players at running back with Donovan Edwards and Jordan Waters. So the third down running back primarily is in the game when you're in like shotgun or passing formations, and the power back is primarily in there in under center formations. Sometimes playbooks in different formations it's going to vary, but general rule of thumb, that's what this is going to equal. The slot wide receiver position is exactly what it says it is. This is going to be your primary receiver that's in the slot no matter what formation you're in. The sub linebacker spot might be the most important spot that you see on this part of the roster screen, because this is primarily who's going to be your linebacker or player that you use or control in a lot of scenarios. And you, depending on the formation, can select up to 2 of these. So for example, I like to run the 3-2-6 defense, which is going to be 3 down linemen that are going to be at the defensive line, 2 guys in the middle of the field, which are primarily my users or my linebackers, and then 6 defensive backs, which is usually going to be 4 cornerbacks and 2 high safeties. And when you go into this sub linebacker spot, you have 4 positions available to choose from. So right outside linebacker, left outside linebacker, middle linebacker, but also you can put a strong safety here. Now in Madden Ultimate Team, you could also put a free safety. I don't know if this will change at any point, but the way the game is right now, only strong safety is available. But we have this Malik Verdon item, and he's a 6'4" strong safety with 81 speed. Now a lot of the linebackers on my team aren't that fast. So not only does this guy give you some good speed, he also is going to give you the height at 6'4". So he's actually, if we go over to my defensive screen, I moved him to strong safety number 1, but he's now probably going to be considered middle linebacker 1 because the specialist screen almost overrides what you see on the defense screen. Again, certain formations it's going to vary, but for the defense that I run, we're going to have him in the box as a linebacker that we can use or control. And because I run that 3-2-6, I need to select a second guy. Now we would look at Abdul Carter here and say, you know what, he's got 84 speed. He's really fast, but he's more of a pass rusher, and that's where I want to place him. So I'm going to look for somebody else to put there, and in this case, I'm going to go with Francisco Moyaga. Probably butchered his name. Apologies if I do. This is my 84 overall middle linebacker on my defensive screen. So basically, these 2 guys are going to be in the middle of that defense. Now, we talked about the linebacker, Abdul Carter, who's an outside linebacker who looks better as a pass rusher. The rush left end and the rush right end are basically where you want to put your 2 defensive ends. And in this scenario, you can put right outside linebackers, left outside linebackers, defensive tackles, or defensive ends, right and left side. So I'm going to put this Abdul Carter in my lineup, and you might notice that I have 2 of these. It is a little hard to see, but you can look towards the bottom right of the art on this item. It says lineup. This indicates this is the one that's already in my lineup. This one is not. So I want to keep the same one in there because you can't put 2 of the same items in your lineup at the same time. So we're going to make him our rush left end. And over on the right end, we're going to go ahead and just use a traditional defensive end in Ashton Gillette. So now these 2 players are going to be, no matter what formation I'm in, they're going to be the defensive ends in my defense, and because that's the way I want it to be. If we go back to the defensive screen, you're going to see it's a little bit different because we have a right end and a left end. Again, the specialist screen is going to override that, and that's how I want it to be purposely. And then in the middle, you got your rush defensive tackle. This is going to be basically who's going to be defensive tackle number 1. But there are scenarios in certain situations where defensive ends, primarily that's going to be their position, but they might have the attributes where they are better suited as a defensive tackle. So in that situation, you might want to place one there. Finally, we have the slot cornerback section. This is going to be where your third cornerback is. So if you're running a nickel defense, it's going to be that inside defender. And in my case, we talked about how I like to run that 3-2-6 defense. We have 4 cornerbacks, 2 on the outside, 2 on the inside. So for me in the defense I run, it's important to fill up that slot cornerbacks number 2 on the depth chart because this player is going to see the field a lot. The strategy screen is going to be where you select your playbook. So for me, I'm on the offensive Rutgers playbook, and defense we have UNLV. There's a lot of solo challenges right now available that you can go through and play and earn a bunch of playbooks on offense and defense for free. So definitely go through and play those. There's also strategy items for offense and defense. This is being recorded very early in the game, so there's not many strategy items available, but there's a lot of field passes often, like the Season 1 field pass, where you can earn items to put in here to boost up your team on certain attributes. And then finally, you have the visual screen, which is where you're going to select your home and away uniforms, the home stadium that you play in, and your coach, which in some situations may be able to provide additional boost to your team. At this very moment, you cannot. So now that we have our lineup all set, let's talk chemistries and abilities, and that information can all be found to the far right of your lineup. So if you use your D-pad and go right as far as it will let you, you're going to see under lineup tools, you have your ability section and then chemistries. The first 2 sections appear to be associated with whatever playbook that you're using. So on offense, I have a spread playbook. On defense, I have a 3-2-6 playbook. If I were to change one of my playbooks to a different type, this would change. And right now, it only appears to be boosting play action. There may be upgraded playbooks that come throughout the year. We're going to hold for more information on that. There's also team chemistries, and there's a big difference in this year's game compared to Madden Ultimate Team, in which you can put any team chemistry on any item in the game. Now, there is a cost associated with that, but as we scroll through the list, you're going to see there's several schools that you can notice. Georgia, we have a 3 of 5. If I go down a little bit further, Michigan is a 3 of 5. This means that I have 3 Michigan players in my lineup right now. Oregon and Syracuse were both at 4 of 5, and if you go into any one of these, you can see the boosts that it provide. So if we can get to tier 1, which would be 5 components or 5 players, we would get +1 strength to all of the players with a Syracuse chemistry on them. And if we're able to continue to go up, tier 2 is then going to boost up +1 to jumping. It requires 10 components, which would mean you need 10 different players with the Syracuse chemistry. And the ultimate goal here is to try to get to 50 components. Getting a 50 of 50 is going to give you a +1 speed to every player with that particular team chemistry. Tier 9, 45 components boost the acceleration. You get agility. It does repeat the jumping, the strength as well. Acceleration is also impacted at tier 4. So this is a great way to basically make your players faster. And along with team chemistries, you also have scheme chemistry. So each player or each item has a scheme chemistry associated with it, and these are also going to provide additional boosts. So if you have air raid players or multiple offense players, you can see here we have 6 of 25 on the pro style player, and any item that you look at down towards the bottom, you're going to see the scheme chemistry and the team chemistry. And just like with the team chemistries, if we go into pro style here, we're going to see that if we're able to get to 25 components, 25 items or players that have that pro style chemistry, that would boost +1 play action to all of those associated players. And if we're able to get all the way to 50 with that as well, there's an additional option to get that +1 speed. Early on for the scheme chemistries, that could be a little bit difficult to get done or a little bit expensive. But when it comes to the team chemistries, as I mentioned earlier, any item in the game can get any team chemistry. So if you go into an item in your lineup screen and hit square on PlayStation or X on Xbox, you're going to get a couple different options. Compare allows you to show, one quarterback versus another. You can take players from that specific position out of the position. You can remove them directly from your lineup, but we're going to go to upgrade tab. And one of the main things that you can change is the team chemistry, regardless of what team that player played for. So The initial cost for this is going to be 5 training. You can see there are lock icons on the ability buckets and also the team chemistry bucket. To unlock those, it will require you to spend 5 training. Once we spend that, the ability buckets are now no longer locked. Same with the team. And if you ever wanted to get rid of this item, whether you were going to sell it or quick sell it, you can always refund it. You're going to get 4 of the 5 training back that you spent to unlock those buckets. If you're wondering how you obtain training, the easiest way is to quick sell an item, whether it's an item you already had in your possession, or if you go out and buy one, you go into any item and select it. You're going to have a bunch of different options, and towards the bottom you have quick sell. So because I don't need this Joe Burrow item anymore, I'm going to go ahead and quick sell it to get the 500 training. We're going to need this to put abilities on items as well. So this is kind of an investment. You don't want to just be doing this just to do it, and you make sure you want to make sure that you're not quick selling items that you might eventually need. For me, I already know that I have this Will Howard item as my starting quarterback, and I'm pretty happy with him. So that's why I feel comfortable going ahead and quick selling the Joe Burrow. From this item screen, you can also go into any item and go over to the upgrade tab towards the upper left, and you'll have that same screen that we were just taking a look at within the lineup. So now we do have some training to work with, and if we go down to the team section, by default he has Ohio State, but as I explained, you can put any of the 134 team chemistries onto this item. So if I wanted to put Syracuse on him, remember when we were showing you our lineup, we had 4 of 5 players to get to that tier 1. This would give us that 5th player to jump up to the tier 1. We would simply select this. This is going to cost 15,000 coins, which is a bit pricey. At this point, this early in the year, I wouldn't recommend doing this. Items are only going to get better. This is going to become very costly if you do it, and it's a lot to spend just for a +1 speed. And remember, you have to get to 50 players with the same team chemistry. You do 50 times 15K, it's a lot of coins. So it's not worth it, but if you wanted to, maybe you were 1 away and you had the coins to spend, that's how you would do it. Now, if I were to go ahead and do this, which I will for demonstration purposes, we're going to replace Ohio State with Syracuse, and now you will see towards the bottom of the item, it no longer says Ohio State. It has the Syracuse logo. You can still see the pro style there. That cannot be changed. The scheme chemistry cannot be changed. Also, from this screen, if you look to the right, pro style is indicated that we're at 6 of 50. We saw that in the lineup screen. Well, if we use our directional pad to go over to the team chemistry, you can now see that we're at 5 of 50. So you can see that information directly from the player upgrade screen as well. Let's finish the video by talking about abilities and ability points. So on offense and defense, you're allowed 8 ability points to use. There are no X factors in this game, only abilities. There's physical abilities and mental abilities. And once you unlock that initial step of 5 training, you now have access based on a player's archetype and attributes to unlock certain abilities. This is what we would call the tier 1 bucket because it's the very first ability bucket where you have options to choose from. You can see the field general bronze ability has an X up in the upper right. This means that he does not have 83 awareness, which means we cannot unlock this ability. But if you take a look at all of these other ones, they meet the requirements, whatever they are, based on his attributes, where we can go in and unlock them. And these to unlock or assign will cost training. You get a description towards the bottom here on the right-hand side of what each ability does, and there are a ton of abilities in the game. The tier 2 bucket will feature more options, and there will be tier 3 and maybe even beyond that, tier 4 and 5 buckets. There are a few items in the game right now that do have tier 3 buckets. As far as the best abilities, a lot of these haven't been discovered yet as the best ones out there. I'll continue to test a lot of them out, and we will definitely have videos on my channel going over some of the best ones to be using. But if you wanted to go ahead and assign one, we'll go with this sleight of hand bronze. You can see towards the middle right, it has that it costs 1 AP for this ability. Remember, you have 8 ability points on offense, 8 on defense, and this would cost us 30 training. So if I want to craft or unlock this ability, we're going to go ahead and choose that. It's going to cost us 30 training. We can go ahead and equip it. And now if you look at the bottom right of the card art, it does say that he has a ×1 ability, which just simply indicates the 1 ability. If we flip the card by pushing our right analog stick to the right, you can now see that ability shown on the back of the item as well. Now you can put an ability on every single player on your team, but that doesn't mean that they're going to be activated in game. You are limited to 8 ability points. And when we go back over to the far right of our lineup screen, we're on the offensive side right here. We're going to go to this active player section. This over here on the left is going to show you all of the players that you have abilities assigned to. Now, they're not activated for the game just yet, but this is where you select them. So because we put an ability on Will Howard, we're just simply going to press X or A on Xbox to activate it. You can now see over to the right under active players, it says Will Howard 1 AP, and if you look towards the upper right of your screen, it says that that AP limit is 1 of 8. So again, you can put an ability on every single player that's allowed to get an ability on your team, but you can't actually bring them into the game unless they're activated on this screen, and you're limited to those 8 ability points. If we wanted to do the same thing on defense, we'll use Will Johnson for an example here. Square or X on PlayStation. We'll choose that upgrade option, and we can first spend that initial 5 training to unlock all of our team chemistry options. So if we wanted to change this from Michigan, we could do that. Still going to cost us the 15,000 coins. You can see his scheme chemistry is 4-3. He's the only one on my entire team that has that. That's why it says 1 of 50 over on the right. He's the third or 1 of 3 Michigan players that we have. You can see that on the right. And he has three ability buckets here. So I can go into any one of these and take a look at what they do. You can see some of these abilities cost 2 ability points. Some cost 3, some cost 30 training to unlock, some cost 120 to unlock. Because I play a lot of man coverage, I'm going to select this blanket coverage ability, which gives me slightly improved cut reaction time in man coverage. It's going to cost us the 30 training. That is now added onto this card, but it's yet not activated. It won't work in game unless we go back over to that screen on the far right under active players. And notice how we're on defense, it says 0 of 8. When we go to our offensive screen, you got 1 of 8 because of Will Howard. Back over to defense, we now have to go in and activate him just like we did the Will Howard card. Both Wills are getting abilities. We selected that. Look over to the right under active players. You got Will Johnson, 2 AP, and the upper right-hand side, you got AP limit, 2 of 8. And again, you have available to you 8 ability points on offense, 8 ability points on defense. You also will have ability points on special teams. This early in the year, I don't think there's going to be many special teams players that have abilities associated with them, and it's mostly just going to be your punter and kicker, but this is where you would go eventually to assign abilities to a punter or a kicker once we start to get players that have those options. So I think that covers everything. We talked about abilities. We talked about scheme and team chemistries. We showed you how to activate those abilities. We talked about setting up your lineups for the best way to fit to your scheme. If you guys got any additional questions, leave it down below in the comment section. And thank you for watching. My name is Popular Stranger. I'm out. Peace.